They say that 62% of people over 40 have secretly wondered what life would have been like with their first love. I stumbled across that statistic one restless night, scrolling through my phone while Sarah, my wife of 15 years, lay asleep beside me, or so I thought. That number lodged itself in my brain like a splinter. 62%. More than half the people I pass on the street, maybe even some of our friends, carrying that quiet what if. I didn't know then that I'd soon join a different club. The husband's blindsided by a past that refuses to stay buried. We'd built a life together. 2 kids, a house with a leaky roof we kept meaning to fix, a rhythm of school runs and Sunday dinners. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Then, out of nowhere, she dropped the bomb. It was a Tuesday evening, the kids already in bed, and we were sitting at the kitchen table, dishes still in the sink. She looked at me with those hazel eyes I'd known since we were 25 and said, "I've been thinking about Daniel, my first love. I need to see him again." Daniel, a name I'd heard in passing, a guy she dated at 19, long before me. I laughed at first, thinking it was a joke, but her face didn't crack. My coffee cup shook in my hand as she went on. "I just need to know what it means. I'm not ending us, but I need a pause. A pause. On our marriage. On me. All for a guy who'd been a memory for 2 decades. I sat there, stunned. The air thick with questions I couldn't voice. How does a ghost from 20 years ago suddenly outweigh everything we've built? What happens when the woman you love decides to chase a shadow and leaves you standing in the wreckage? That's where this mess begins. And believe me, I never saw it coming. I've always known about Daniel. Sarah didn't hide him from me when we started dating. Back then, it was just little stories, snippets of her teenage years that came up over cheap wine and late-night talks. How he'd pick her up in his beat-up Ford, how they'd dance under the stars at some cheesy school formal, how he wrote her letters when he moved away for college. She'd laugh about it, call it puppy love. And I'd tease her about being a hopeless romantic. "He was just a kid I used to know," she'd say, and I'd nod unbothered. Why would I care? That was 20 years ago, before I met her at a mutual friend's barbecue, before we fell into the kind of love that felt steady, real. We got married at 28, had Lily at 30, Max at 32. Life rolled on messy, loud, beautiful. I thought Daniel was just a footnote, a faded Polaroid in the scrapbook of her past. Until he wasn't. Started creeping in slowly. So slow I didn't see it at first. Maybe I didn't want to. About 6 months ago, Sarah got quieter. She'd stare out the window while stirring pasta, lost in some thought she wouldn't share. I catch her scrolling through old photos on her phone. Not ours, but ones from way back, grainy shots of her teenage self I didn't recognize. She started humming songs I'd never heard, soft melodies that didn't fit our usual playlist of kid-friendly pop and classic rock. "You okay?" I'd ask, leaning against the counter, and she'd blink, flash a tight smile and say, "Yeah, just tired." I let it go. Work was stressful, the kids were a handful. Lily with her preteen attitude, Max with his endless energy. I figured she needed space, a breather. Marriage gets heavy sometimes. I get that. Then came the late-night whispers. Not to me, but to herself. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. to an empty spot beside me, find her downstairs with a cup of tea, muttering things I couldn't make out. "Sarah?" I'd call, and she'd startle, say she couldn't sleep. I should have pushed harder, asked more. But I didn't. Maybe I was scared of the answer. Instead, I'd shuffle back to bed, convincing myself it was nothing. A midlife slump, a rough patch. We'd been through those before. We'd always come out the other side. Until 3 weeks ago when the truth spilled out. She'd been texting him. Daniel. She showed me her phone one night, hands trembling, like she needed to prove it wasn't a secret anymore. "It started on Facebook," she said. "He found me, sent a message. Just catching up, you know? Catching up. That's what she called it. But I saw the dates. Months of messages, not just a hello. She swore it wasn't physical. Not yet. But her eyes told a different story. That spark, the one I hadn't seen in years, was back. Not for me, but for him. "I don't know what I feel," she admitted, voice cracking. I need to figure it out. Rekindling old flames isn't something you plan for. You hear about it? Some coworker's wife running off with her high school sweetheart. A plot twist in a bad movie. But it's not supposed to happen to you. Not when you've got 15 years of history, a home, a life. I thought we were solid, not perfect, but solid. Now she's talking about needing space. About seeing where this goes, with a guy who's been gone longer than he was ever in her life. And me? I'm left wondering how a memory can hold more weight than the man standing right in front of her. She says it's not the end, just a pause, but every time she says his name, it feels like a knife twisting deeper. This isn't the Sarah I know. Or maybe it is, and I've been blind all along. The kitchen table felt like a battlefield that night, the air heavy with her words still ringing in my ears. I need to see him again. I need a pause. Sarah sat across from me, her hands clasped tight around a mug she wasn't drinking from, her eyes darting anywhere but mine. I wanted to yell, to demand answers. How could she even think this? But my voice came out small, cracked. What does that mean, Sarah? A pause? What are we pausing? She didn't answer right away. She just stared at the table, tracing invisible lines with her finger, like she was trying to map out a decision she'd already half made. It's not about you, she finally said. So quiet I almost missed it. It's about me. I need to know who I am outside of this. She waved a hand vaguely, toward me, the house, our life. That stung more than I expected. 15 years, and suddenly, this was something she needed to escape? I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, trying to keep the anger from boiling over. And Daniel's the answer to that? I asked, sharper than I meant. Her flinch told me I'd hit a nerve, but she didn't back down. Maybe, she said, maybe he's part of it. I don't know yet. That yet hung there, a guillotine waiting to drop. She didn't know if Daniel was her answer, but she was willing to risk us to find out. Couldn't wrap my head around it. This wasn't some fling, some midlife crisis affair with a coworker or a stranger at a bar. This was her first love. A guy she hadn't seen since she was a kid. A guy who'd been nothing but a name to me until now. And yet, here she was, ready to press pause on our marriage for him. What's he giving you that I can't? I asked, hating how desperate I sounded. She sighed, rubbing her temples. It's not about giving, Mark. It's about feeling. I feel something when I talk to him. Something I haven't felt in a long time. That cut deep. I wanted to ask when she'd stopped feeling anything with me, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I just sat there, replaying the last few years in my head. Had I missed something? We weren't perfect, whose marriage is. There were fights about money, about the kids, about whose turn it was to take out the trash. But we'd always worked through it. Or so I thought. Lately, though, she'd been distant, not cold, just absent. I chalked it up to stress, to the grind of raising 2 kids while juggling jobs. Now I wondered if it was more, if she'd been drifting toward him all along. She told me more that night, pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. They'd started messaging months ago. Innocent at first, she said. Happy birthday, turned into remember when. And soon they were texting daily. He'd moved back to the States last year, she said, after years abroad. Single now, no kids. He's different, she told me, her voice softening in a way that made my stomach twist. Older, sure, but still him. I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't want to. All I could picture was some guy out there, typing words that lit her up more than I had in years. The dilemma wasn't just hers, it was ours, whether she saw it or not. She wanted to meet him, in person, just to talk. She'd already booked a weekend away, she admitted, dropping that like it was no big deal. I'm not leaving you, she insisted. I just need this. But how do you just need something that could break everything? If she went, if she saw him, what then? What if talking turned into more? What if she came back and said she couldn't stay? And if she didn't go, would she resent me forever, always wondering what she'd missed? I could see it in her eyes. She was torn, caught between the life we'd built and a past she couldn't let go of. I tried to reason with her. We've got kids, Sarah. Lily's 12, Max is 10. What do I tell them if you're off chasing this guy? She winced, guilt flashing across her face. "It's not chasing," she said. "It's closure. I need to know if what I felt back then was real, or if I've just built it up in my head." Closure. That word felt like a lie. Closure doesn't need a plane ticket and a hotel room. Closure doesn't mean pausing your family. But she was set on it, and I could feel her slipping away even as she sat there, promising it wasn't the end. The consequences loomed over us like a storm cloud. If she went, I'd be left here, holding down the fort, explaining to the kids why mom's gone for a weekend or longer. I'd be the one lying awake, wondering what she was doing, what she was feeling, and if it worked out with Daniel? If she came back glowing, telling me she'd found something she couldn't live without? I didn't know if I could survive that, but if I stopped her, if I begged, demanded, forbade it, would she hate me for it? Would she stay physically but check out emotionally, always dreaming of him? Either way, I was losing something. Maybe I already had. I asked her point blank, "Do you still love me?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said, reaching for my hand. "This isn't about not loving you. It's about me figuring out what's missing." Her touch was warm, familiar, but it didn't steady me like it used to. Because what's missing? That was the real question, the one she couldn't or wouldn't answer. And as she pulled her hand back, I realized I was staring down a choice I didn't want to make. Fight for her and risk pushing her further away, or let her go and pray she came back. All because of a guy named Daniel, a shadow from 20 years ago who'd somehow become more real to her than me. The days after that kitchen table showdown blurred into a haze of silence and half-spoken truths. Sarah didn't bring up Daniel again right away, but his name hung between us like a third person in the room, invisible but suffocating. I'd catch her staring at her phone, thumb hovering over the screen, and I'd wonder if she was typing to him. She'd catch me watching and slip it into her pocket, offering a weak smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just work," she'd say, and I'd nod, pretending I believed her. We were tiptoeing around each other, trapped in a house that suddenly felt too small, too fragile. I wanted to understand why she was doing this, why Daniel, why now, but every time I tried to ask, the words tangled up in my chest. Maybe I was afraid of what she'd say. Maybe I already knew. I started digging into our past, replaying our 15 years together like a movie I could pause and rewind. Where had it gone wrong? We'd met at a barbecue, her in a sundress, me spilling beer on my shirt trying to impress her. She'd laughed, handed me a napkin, and that was it. I was hooked. We were 25, young enough to dream big but old enough to know what we wanted. 3 years later, we were married in a little church upstate, her dad crying in the front row, my mom whispering I'd picked a good one. Lily came 2 years after that, Max 2 years later. Life sped up, diapers, mortgages, parent-teacher conferences. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. I thought we were happy. Not the wild, reckless kind of happy from our 20s, but the steady kind, the kind that keeps you going. Had I been wrong all along? Sarah's nostalgia for Daniel didn't make sense to me at first. She'd only dated him for a year, back when she was 19. Kid, really. She'd told me the story a dozen times. He was her high school sweetheart, the guy who'd taught her how to drive stick shift, who'd kissed her under the bleachers at a football game. They'd broken up when he left for college overseas. Some tearful goodbye at the airport, promises to right that faded over time. She'd moved on, met me, built a life. So why was she clinging to that now? I asked her one night, after the kids were asleep, when we were sitting on the couch with a glass of wine neither of us touched. "What's so special about him, Sarah? What's he got that's worth all this?" She didn't answer right away. She swirled the wine in her glass, staring into it like it held the words she couldn't find. "It's not about him being special," she said finally. "It's about who I was with him. I was free, young, full of possibility. I didn't have responsibilities, didn't have to think about bills or schedules or anyone else. I missed that version of me." Her voice cracked, and she looked away, blinking hard. I wanted to reach for her, but my hands stayed glued to my knees. "You can't go back to that," I said, quieter than I meant. "None of us can." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't agree. "Not really." That's when I started to see it. Her longing wasn't just for Daniel. It was for a time when life was simpler, when she wasn't a wife, a mom, a woman pushing 40 with a job she didn't love and a body she complained about in the mirror. I got that. I missed parts of my old self too. The guy who'd stay up all night playing guitar, who'd take off on a road trip with no plan. But I traded that for this, for us, and I didn't regret it. Did she? I asked her that too, point blank, a few nights later. Do you regret us? The kids? Me? She shook her head fast, eyes wide. No, Mark. Never. I love you. I love them. This isn't about regret. But her words felt hollow, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. The more we talked, or didn't talk, the more I saw the cracks in our marriage I'd ignored. We'd been coasting for years, hadn't we? Date nights turned into Netflix on the couch, interrupted by Max needing water or Lily arguing about homework. Sex was rare, quick, more habit than passion. We'd stopped asking each other the big questions. How are you, really? What do you want? I'd assumed we were fine because we weren't fighting, because the bills got paid and the kids were okay. But fine isn't the same as good, and I hadn't noticed the difference until now. Had she been unhappy all this time? Or was this new, sparked by Daniel's messages lighting up her phone? I tried to figure him out too. Who was this guy? Anyway, she wouldn't let me see the texts. It's private, she'd said. Like that didn't make it worse. So I pieced him together from what she'd let slip. He was 41 now, same as her, back in the States after years in Europe. Divorced, no kids, some kind of freelance writer or artist, vague enough to sound romantic, I guess. She'd said he was different but the same, whatever that meant. I pictured him with a scruffy beard, a leather jacket, the kind of guy who'd quote poetry and make her laugh in ways I hadn't in years. It drove me crazy, imagining him out there, charming her with memories I couldn't compete with. Because that's what he had, memories. Not the messy reality of raising kids or arguing over who forgot to buy milk. Just a perfect, frozen moment from 20 years ago. I started watching her closer, looking for clues. She'd light up when her phone buzzed, then catch herself and dim it again. She'd hum those old songs, ones I didn't know, and I'd wonder if they were his. One afternoon, I found her in the garage, digging through a box of old stuff. Yearbooks, photos, a faded letter in an envelope she tucked away when she saw me. Just cleaning, she said, but her cheeks were red. I didn't push it, couldn't. Every time I got close to confronting her, I'd see the kids. Lily practicing her violin, Max building Legos, and I'd freeze. What if I pushed too hard and she left? What if this pause turned permanent? Her motivations were a tangle I couldn't unravel. Part of it was nostalgia, sure, that ache for a simpler time. Part of it was unresolved feelings. She'd admitted once, late at night, that she'd never really said goodbye to him. It just ended, she'd said. No closure. But there was more, something deeper. She'd started questioning everything. Her job, her choices, who she'd become. I feel stuck, she told me one morning over coffee, her voice raw, like I'm living someone else's life. I wanted to scream that this was her life, our life, but I just nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Was I part of what trapped her? Or was I the one she was running from? Our marriage wasn't dead. I knew that. There were still moments, fleeting but real. She'd laugh at my dumb jokes sometimes, or rest her head on my shoulder during a movie. But those moments were fading, overshadowed by her pull toward Daniel. She'd booked that weekend trip. She reminded me one night, casual as if she were going to the grocery store. It's just a few days, she said. I'll be back. But her eyes said something else, uncertainty, maybe even hope. Hope for what? I didn't know if I could handle the answer. I started losing sleep, lying awake while she breathed softly beside me, wondering how we'd gotten here. I'd trace back the years, searching for the moment I'd lost her, or she'd lost herself. Was it after Max was born, when we were both too tired to talk? Was it when I took that promotion and started working late? Or had it been brewing longer? A quiet ache she'd buried until Daniel dug it up? I didn't have answers, just questions that gnawed at me. And the worst one, if she went to him, would she come back the same Sarah? Or would I lose her for good? Not to an affair, but to a version of her I'd never known. The Friday before her trip arrived like a storm I couldn't outrun. For weeks, I'd been bracing myself, but nothing prepared me for the sight of her suitcase by the door. It was small, just a carry-on, but it might as well have been a wrecking ball. Sarah moved through the house that morning with a nervous energy, packing a toothbrush, folding a sweater, checking her phone every 5 minutes. I watched her from the kitchen, coffee going cold in my hands, my chest tight with a mix of dread and disbelief. This was it. After all the late-night talks, the silences, the half-answers, she was really doing it. She was leaving me, us, for a weekend with Daniel. Pause, she'd called it. But standing there, staring at that suitcase, it felt like an ending. The kids were at school, thank God. I didn't know how I'd explain this to them yet. Lily with her sharp questions, Max with his wide-eyed trust. Sarah had suggested I say she was visiting a friend, some vague excuse about needing a break. It's not a lie, she'd said, avoiding my gaze. But it was, and we both knew it. She wasn't going to see a friend. She was going to see him, Daniel, the guy who'd somehow clawed his way back into her life after 20 years, pulling her away from me with nothing but memories and a few months of texts. I'd spent weeks trying to understand, to piece together why she needed this, but understanding didn't make it hurt less. It just made me angrier. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. As she zipped up her bag, I stepped into the living room, my voice shaking but firm. Sarah, don't do this. She froze, her hand still on the zipper, and turned to face me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she'd been crying, or fighting not to. Mark, we've talked about this, she said, soft but steady. I need to go. I need to know. I took a step closer, my hands clenched at my sides. Know what? If he's better than me? If you love him more? What the hell are you looking for that I can't give you? My voice cracked, louder than I meant, and she flinched, but I didn't stop. 15 years, Sarah. 2 kids. A home. And you're throwing it all on hold for what? A guy you haven't seen since you were a kid. She straightened, her jaw tightening. I'm not throwing anything away. I told you this isn't about ending us. It's about me figuring out what I need. Her words were rehearsed, like she'd practiced them in her head 100 times. But they didn't land. They just fueled the fire in my chest. What you need? I shot back. What about what I need? What about Lily and Max? You're not the only one in this, Sarah. You don't get to hit pause on us like we're a damn TV show you can pick back up later. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, looking away. For a second, I thought I'd gotten through. But then she shook her head, slow and stubborn. I have to do this, Mark. If I don't, I'll always wonder. That always wonder hit me like a punch. She wasn't just chasing a fling or a thrill. She was chasing a ghost, a what-if that had haunted her for years. Maybe since the day we met. And I couldn't compete with that, could I? I was real, flawed, tired here. Daniel was a fantasy, a blank slate she could paint with whatever she wanted. I sank onto the couch, running a hand through my hair, trying to breathe through the panic clawing at me. And if you go, I said, quieter now, what happens to us? What if you come back and you're different? What if you don't come back at all? Her face softened, and she crossed the room, kneeling in front of me. I'm coming back, she said, her voice firm, her hand reaching for mine. This isn't goodbye. I love you, Mark. I love our family. I just need this one thing. Her touch was warm, grounding, but it didn't erase the fear. I pulled my hand away, not because I didn't want her, but because I couldn't trust it anymore. You keep saying that, I muttered, but you don't know what you'll feel when you see him. You don't know what this'll do to us. She stood up, stepping back, her expression a mix of guilt and resolve. No, I don't, she admitted. But I can't keep pretending it's not there. The air between us crackled with tension, every word a thread snapping. I wanted to grab her, shake her, make her see what she was risking. But I couldn't. She'd made up her mind, and I could feel it, the shift, the moment she chose him over me, even if she wouldn't say it out loud. When's your flight? I asked, my voice flat, defeated. She hesitated, then said, 3 hours. I need to leave soon. 3 hours. That's all I had left before she walked out the door, before this pause became real. I followed her to the bedroom, watching as she grabbed her charger, her jacket, little pieces of our life she was taking with her. "Where are you meeting him?" I asked, not sure I wanted the answer. She paused, then said, "Chicago. He's there for work." Chicago. A 4-hour flight from here. Far enough to feel like another world. "And you're staying where?" She didn't look at me. "A hotel. Separate rooms, if that's what you're asking." It was, and it wasn't. I didn't know what to believe anymore. "Just talking, right?" I pressed, my tone bitter. She nodded, but her silence said more than her words. The clock ticked down, and with every minute, the stakes climbed higher. I thought about the kids, Lily's recital next week, Max's soccer game. I thought about the empty bed I'd sleep in tonight, the quiet house echoing with her absence. I thought about Daniel, waiting for her, probably smug, probably thinking he'd won something. And I thought about us, 15 years of laughter, fights, love, all teetering on the edge of this one choice. "If you walk out that door," I said, my voice low, "I don't know if I can wait for you to figure it out." It wasn't a threat, just the truth. She stopped, her hand on the doorknob, and turned to me. "I'm not asking you to wait forever," she said. "Just give me this weekend, please." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just stood there as she opened the door, the cold March air rushing in, carrying her away. She looked back once, her eyes pleading, then stepped outside. The suitcase wheels clacked against the pavement, a sound that drilled into my skull as she walked to the car. I wanted to run after her, drag her back, but my feet wouldn't move. The car door slammed, the engine roared, and she was gone. Just like that. I sank to the floor, the house silent except for the hum of the fridge. My phone buzzed, her texting, "I'll call when I land. I love you." I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen, but I didn't reply. What was there to say? She'd made her decision, and I was left here holding the pieces. The tension peaked in that moment. The second she drove away, the second our marriage hung by a thread I couldn't see. Would she come back? Would she still be mine? Or had I just lost her to a man I'd never met? A past I couldn't fight? I didn't know. All I knew was the ache in my chest and the empty space where she'd been. The house was too quiet after she left. That's the first thing I noticed, the absence of her. No clatter of her keys on the counter. No hum of her voice calling out to the kids. No rustle of her moving through our space. Just silence, thick and heavy, pressing down on me as I sat on the living room floor, staring at the spot where her suitcase had been. It was March 25th, 2025, a Tuesday, and my wife of 15 years had just driven off to meet her first love. Pause, she'd called it. A weekend to figure things out. But as the taillights of her car disappeared around the corner, it didn't feel like a pause. It felt like a fracture, a crack in the foundation of everything I'd believed we were. I didn't move for a while. Couldn't. My phone buzzed again. Her text, "I'll call when I land. I love you." I read it over and over, the words blurring into nonsense. Love. She'd said it so easily, like it was enough to hold us together through this. But love wasn't the problem, was it? I loved her too. God, I did. But it hadn't stopped her from walking out the door. It hadn't stopped her from needing Daniel, from chasing a piece of herself she thought she'd lost. I tossed the phone onto the couch, letting it sink into the cushions. I didn't reply. What could I say? Have fun with him? Don't break us? Nothing felt right. The weekend stretched out ahead of me, an endless void I had to fill. The kids would be home soon. Lily from band practice, Max from a friend's house, and I'd have to face them, pretend everything was fine. Sarah had left me with that lie. Tell them I'm visiting a friend. I'd nodded when she'd said it, too numb to argue, but now it burned in my throat. How do you lie to your kids about something like this? How do you look into their eyes and act like their mom hasn't just put their world on hold for a guy they've never heard of? I didn't know, but I'd have to figure it out, because she wasn't here to do it. I got up eventually, forcing myself to move. The kitchen was a mess. Dishes from breakfast still in the sink, a half-eaten piece of toast on the counter. Sarah's mug sat there, cold tea pooling at the bottom. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the rim, and for a second, I could see her holding it, her face tight with guilt as she told me she had to go. I dumped the tea down the drain, washed the mug, and put it away. It felt like erasing her, even just a little, and I hated myself for it. But I couldn't stop. I cleaned the whole kitchen, scrubbed the counters until my hands ached, trying to keep my mind from spinning. It didn't work. Every sponge swipe brought a new question. What was she doing now? Was she at the airport, thinking of me? Or was she already imagining him, smiling at the thought of seeing him again? Her flight would have landed by now, I realized, checking the clock. Chicago, 4 hours away, a city I'd never cared about until today. She'd call soon, she'd said. I didn't know if I wanted her to. Part of me needed to hear her voice, to know she was still mine, even just for a moment. But another part dreaded it. Dreaded the chance I'd hear something in her tone, some lightness, some excitement that wasn't for me. I paced the house, from the kitchen to the living room to our bedroom, stopping at the closet where her clothes still hung. I touched one of her sweaters, soft and familiar, and wondered if she'd packed something special for him, something I'd never see. The kids came home an hour later, bursting through the door with their usual chaos. "Where's Mom?" Max asked, dropping his backpack on the floor. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "She's visiting a friend for the weekend. Back soon." He shrugged, already distracted by a Lego set, but Lily narrowed her eyes. "Which friend?" she pressed, her 12-year-old skepticism cutting through me. "Just someone from out of town," I said, turning away to hide the lie in my face. She didn't push, but I could feel her watching me as I fumbled through dinner. Burnt chicken nuggets and soggy fries, a far cry from Sarah's cooking. They didn't complain, though. They just ate, chattered about school, oblivious to the storm inside me. That night, after they were in bed, she called. I let it ring twice before picking up, my heart hammering. "Hey," she said, her voice soft, a little tired. "I'm here." I closed my eyes, picturing her in some Chicago hotel room, alone, or not. "Good flight?" I asked, keeping it neutral. "Yeah, fine," she said. A pause. Then, "How are the kids?" "Fine," I echoed. "They miss you." Another pause. "I miss them too," she said, and I waited for her to add, "and you." But she didn't. "Mark," she started, hesitant. "I know this is hard. Thank you for letting me do this." Letting her. Like I'd had a choice. "Yeah," I muttered. "Call tomorrow, okay?" She promised she would, and we hung up. No "I love you" this time. Just silence. The next 2 days were a blur. I kept busy. Took Max to soccer, helped Lily with a science project, fixed that leaky faucet we'd ignored for months. Anything to avoid thinking about her with him. But it was impossible. Every quiet moment brought it back. Sarah laughing with Daniel over coffee, walking through Chicago streets, maybe holding his hand. I tortured myself with it, imagining every detail. His voice, her smile, the way she might look at him, the way she used to look at me. By Sunday, I was a wreck, snapping at the kids over nothing, staring at my phone like it could tell me what she was feeling. She came home Sunday night, right on schedule. I heard the car pull up, the door open, and there she was, suitcase in hand, her face unreadable. The kids ran to her, hugging her tight, and she smiled, kissed their heads, told them she'd missed them. I stood back, waiting, my pulse racing. When they went to bed, it was just us again, standing in the kitchen like strangers. "How was it?" I asked, my voice rough. She set her bag down, took a breath. "It was good," she said. "We talked. A lot." I braced myself, expecting the worst. And, depressed. She looked at me, her eyes soft but distant. "I got what I needed," she said. "Closure. He's not what I thought." Relief hit me, but it was short-lived. "So that's it?" I asked. "You're back now?" "We're good." She hesitated, and that pause told me everything. "I'm back," she said, "but I still need time to think about us. The word sounded fragile, like it could shatter if I pushed too hard. What does that mean? I demanded, stepping closer. You saw him. You got your closure. Now what? She shook her head, tears welling up. I don't know, Mark. I love you, but I'm not sure what I want anymore. And there it was, the truth I'd feared. She hadn't chosen him, but she hadn't chosen me either. She'd come back, but not all the way. I nodded, too tired to fight, and walked away, leaving her standing there. The implications sank in slow and heavy. Her choice to go hadn't ended us, but it had changed us. She'd found closure with Daniel, sure, but she'd opened a new wound, one between us. I didn't know if we could fix it, if she'd ever look at me the way she once did. All I knew was that I'd lost something, even if she was standing right there. For me, it meant living with the fallout, her uncertainty, my resentment, the kids caught in the middle. It meant nights wondering if she'd drift away again, if I'd ever trust her fully. And for her, it meant facing the life she'd built with me, the one she'd questioned enough to risk. We weren't done, not yet, but we weren't whole either. The pause was over, but the story wasn't. And as I lay in bed that night, her breathing steady beside me, I wondered if we'd ever find our way back, or if we'd just keep drifting, two people tethered by love, but pulled apart by time. So here I am, a week after Sarah came back from Chicago, still picking up the pieces of what she left behind. She's here, physically at least, making breakfast for the kids, folding laundry, sleeping next to me. But there's a distance now, a quiet gap I can't bridge, no matter how hard I try. She says she got her closure with Daniel, that he's out of her system, but the pause she took didn't just end when she walked back through the door. It lingers in her faraway looks, in the way she hesitates before saying, I love you. I'm left wondering if we'll ever be us again, or if this is the new normal, a marriage held together by habit and history, not the fire we once had. That's my story, raw and messy as it is, and I guess I'm still living it, one uncertain day at a time. What do you think? I've spent 15 years building a life with her, thinking we were solid, only to watch her chase a shadow from her past. Was she right to go, to risk us for that closure? Or was I wrong to let her, to stand there and let her walk out that door? I don't have the answers. I'm not sure I ever will, but I'd love to hear what you make of it. Have you ever faced something like this, where love and loyalty get tangled up with what-ifs and old flames? Maybe you've been the one needing space or the one left waiting. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I could use the perspective, honestly. Tell me about the choices you've made, the ones you regret, or the ones that saved you. Love's a damn puzzle, isn't it? Let's figure it out together. And if this hit close to home, or even if it didn't, there's more where this came from. I've got another story queued up, one about a guy who found out his best friend was in love with his wife. Same kind of chaos, different angle. It's raw, it's real, and it might just make you think twice about the people closest to you. Check it out if you're up for it. Just click the link or whatever's floating around below. I'll be here, muddling through my own mess, waiting to see what you all have to say. Because if there's one thing I've learned from this, it's that none of us have it all figured out. Not me, not Sarah, not even Daniel. So let's talk about it. What's your take on love, loss, and the ghosts we can't let go? Love heartwarming and hilarious family stories from Reddit? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story.